This is the Mobile Tech Podcast, brought to you by worldpodcasts.com. Now here's your host, Tech Girl, Miriam Joie.
Brought to you by MediaTek. Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joie, and today is Thursday, January 19th, 2023. And I have two special guests from MediaTek here. I've got Cliff Lin and, of course, Finbar Mohnyan as well. And we're going to talk about satellite connectivity on phones. It's a hot topic. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of solutions. And, of course, MediaTek has a solution. So I want to hear about what it involves, the technology, how it's going to look like for the end user. So maybe one of you can kind of walk us through basically, what does it mean for the end customer to have a satellite connection? I know obviously my audience is familiar with some of the competition, but before I talk about the competition for context, just generally walk us through what it involves. Is it just an offspring of the cellular technology, or is it a whole new radio system?
Yep, I think I can start with that. Actually, even though nowadays cellular technology is very advanced, one of the key things that users feel not so good is about the coverage issue. So, for example, in the United States, every time I plan to visit a national park, I need to send out a message to my circle. Look, I'm going to visit a national park, so bear with me. I will out of the connect for a while, but be sure I will return back soon. So it is always a coverage issue all the way. So around 2018, 2019 kind of things, thanks to the advance of the cellular technology, we start to think, could it be possible that we can leverage the existing cellular modem and trying to fix this kind of problem? So it started to emerge. Could it be possible that the cellular modem can connect with the terrestrial network, what we are experiencing now, as well as the satellite at the same time, such that we can fix the problem for the consumers? And so here goes the so-called 3GPP NTN spec. That is named as a 3GPP non-terrestrial network, aiming to resolve this kind of issue. So all the journey started around 2018, 2019. So all the way we are trying to leverage the existing cellular technology to offer the satellite communications for the entire world. But as you can see, along with this journey, there are some competing technology proposed and make this hot topic now.
So what you're telling me is that there is a standard that 3GPP has been working on to enable this technology. It does require some technology on the satellite constellation as well, right? So it's not backwards compatible with old satellite technology. And you guys are working on that. Now, let me quickly touch on the competition to give context to the audience. The first out of the gate, of course, big brouhaha, was Apple, who partnered with Globalstar. Now, I don't know any of the details of the technology that they're using in terms of adding radios or what. Actually, I should say that they made the most noise, but technically T-Mobile and Starlink were the first to announce a partnership. And what is interesting about the T-Mobile one is that they're just using standard 5G bands that the carrier supports in the US. So it should work with any normal 5G phone that is compatible with that US bands for that carrier. Of course, Starlink is putting out new satellites that support that. And because they're low Earth orbit and they have a lot of satellites, I can see this working quite well. And they're actually advertising that you might be able to upload a photo very slowly, not just do two-way messaging or emergency messaging. So then Apple comes along and does the announcement with Globalstar. They didn't mention Globalstar, but we know that's what it is. And they're doing very basic emergency SOS. So it looks like they probably have extra hardware and some sort of protocol for that. And you correct me if I'm wrong, because maybe they use also some sort of standard. And then, of course, most recently here at CES, we've seen your competitor Qualcomm announced a partnership with Iridium using, a similar very slow bandwidth, two-way communication using their constellation and low Earth orbit. So that's what I know of, but I want to really know what you guys are doing with MediaTek and what it sounds like to me a worldwide standard that is being put forth by the 3GPP. To me, that's way more exciting to have a universal solution. In fact, if you had asked me before talking to you, I was kind of a big proponent of the T-Mobile Starlink thing, because to me, if any phone can just work, that's gravy. But at the same time, constellations are expensive, satellites are not cheap. And if you want to make it accessible to the consumer, you got to maybe make some compromises. So tell us about what this technology entails in terms of equipment on the phone and what constellations they can talk to or future constellations they should talk to.
Yeah, sure. So I would like to make the first distinct comparison among those competing technologies. As I said, we are working on the 3GPP NTN standard. So that is the standard approach. For all the other approaches, you can consider that is a certain kind of a proprietary spec. In particular,
that's very important.
Yes. So according to the public information, since we don't know too much detail about what the other people they are doing, but according to the public information, Apple is working with Global Star. That is a proprietary the satellite communication, and so does the Iridium is a proprietary spec. And even for SpaceX, they claim they want to do something to enable the existing phone unmodified. To some extent, it is not the standard approach. They are trying to modify something in order to make that working. So that would be a very simple classification about the foundation regarding those satellite communication technologies. And as I said, when we started formatting the 3GPP NTN in the 3GPP, we try to leverage existing asset as much as possible. It means that not only to leverage the existing cellular infrastructure, but also to leverage the existing satellite infrastructure as much as possible. Having said that, one of the key things is in the 3GPP standard, it defines the so-called transparent architecture. So once there's a constellation based on the band pipe architecture, it could be converted into the 3GPP NTN compliant network. Once hooked up with the NTN enabled base station with the ground station, then it will be done. So that is why our customers and our partners, they can roll out this 3GPP NTN product and services so quick. It doesn't need additional satellite launch to construct the NTN services. It is trying to leverage the existing asset as much as possible.
Okay, so just to summarize and to make sure I'm clear on what you're saying it's kind of open to the future, the standard that the 3GPP created, correct? So that you could potentially add other constellations in the future. But how is that, working? Is that software-defined radio, or is this going to be requiring some different antennas and hardware and RF front ends on the phones and modems, of course?
Yeah, that's a good question. Just because we try to leverage the cellular industry as much as possible. So when we work on the standard itself, we are trying to think about the user devices, for example, for the smartphone. So we try to adjust or to make the spec working with the existing form factor. For example, smartphone, trying to make the smartphone form factor working and with the NTN standard. Such that for the entire industry, no matter that's an OEM or technology developers, they can leverage this kind of things as much as possible. So there's no special design for the antenna. Definitely, it should be adjusting to fit into the new criteria, specification, etc. However, for the fundamental design concept, etc., we want to preserve as much the same as possible.
Let me add, Mariam, maybe just for some additional context. This is Finbar. I think Cliff covered some of it, but I think some of the key messages around our approach to satellite connectivity is, one, we were very active in actually driving the 3GPP standard. So we're very much at the forefront of, helping the 3GPP organization derive this, NTN standard for satellite communication. And as Cliff mentioned, that work started many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other approach that we've taken is we support an additional chip that we can add to any phone. So this isn't limited to any one chipset from our side. So as Cliff mentioned, essentially any chipset, any smartphone, can add this additional component.
So it's an additional part. It's not baked into your ultimate 5G modem like you have today.
And maybe we'll talk about that, but long term, that's where it's going to go. But at least today, that gives us quite a lot of flexibility to support the bidirectional satellite communication that the so-called NTN IoT standard that Cliff talked about. So that gives us quite a lot of flexibility. And, we've already seen, Bullet announce a phone.
I was just going to say, so was that announcement you guys related to? Great, because I missed that at CES, but I saw the news of them. Bullet, and the company who makes the cat phones, is obviously rugged phones, very popular rugged phones, especially in the UK. Made a demo of the satellite connectivity using their phone. And so I was actually thinking, it's got to be MediaTek, right?
Correct. Yeah. So those are some of the key points. Yeah.
Can you tell us what constellations the technology currently supports? I mean, you might not be, but give us an idea at least.
Yeah. So at this moment, the solution is working with a geostationary constellation. Okay. And you can connect with those constellations once it is 3GPP NTN compliant. So potentially there are many well-established constellation can do that. And definitely Inmarsat is on the picture according to the news. And there are some other geostationary constellation vendors on the pipeline.
As soon as you said geostationary, I knew it was Inmarsat, because there's really not that many constellations that are geostationary for two-way communication. But presumably low Earth orbit is supported by the 3GPP standard as well. That seems to be a more future-proof solution to me, because we probably want more than emergency communications going forward, right?
Yes. So you're absolutely right. Some of the LEO satellite constellation operators, they are working on that part.
Cool.
Yeah. So the important thing is whatever constellation they are built, once they make this 3GPP NTN approach, you can consider the interoperability is very good. Just like what we are experiencing now with the unified design phone, it can go with any carriers once that is a 3GPP compliant. Right. So does the 3GPP NTN satellite network. So the ability will grow over time.
Right.
I was just going to add, Miriam, to build on what Cliff said, right? I mean, I think for your audience, it's probably important to think about this, NTN communication is an evolving picture, right? And so the first step is in the standardization process is what, Cliff's already described as the, NTN IoT, which allows, this bi-directional emergency messaging kind of service. But clearly there is work ongoing, and we're very active. In fact, we'll also be demonstrating some of this on our booth at Mobile World Congress next month, where we're going to see much wider bandwidth communication over the satellite communication networks, which are going to allow for that richer experience in time, even like potentially video calling, data exchanges over the satellite network. But that's probably a little bit in the future. But again, you'll be able to see some of our technology at Mobile World Congress later in February.
Awesome. And I should be there, so I will come by and check it out. So in terms of like end user experience stuff, your customer is the phone manufacturer, or the company is integrating the chips in the phones. But how do you see this panning out? Is it going to be, because it's 3GPP, I assume this is going to be adopted by the operators as it rolls out. And it's in the same way as, new standards were adopted, like MMS and others, RCS. Now you flip a switch somewhere, some servers get installed, some magic happens, and the consumer has the option to pay an extra something a month, or maybe it's bundled in because they're T-Mobile or whatever. And boom, you get satellite connectivity. And of course, Apple has announced that they're going to be charging for this functionality. So a lot of people are like not realizing they're going to be charged for this soon. And for now, it's more like, let's see how this pans out, sort of thing. So it's actually worked out for some people. I believe that some people have been rescued already using Apple's system. So it's paying off already. And obviously, as a consumer, I would love to see that to be included, kind of like 911, emergency services are included. But again, the 3GPP standard lets you dial an emergency number without even a SIM installed on the phone. So I'm hoping that we get to a point where this is kind of how the world treats this technology. Obviously, MediaTek has no control over this, but how do you guys feel? All of what MediaTek does is to improve our lives. So is that what you'd like to see happening long term?
Yeah, indeed. That is the origin of the 3GPP NTN standard. If I can say more, one of the phenomena of people's in modern life is coverage anxiety. So, for example, once I found my Wi-Fi disconnected or I have no cellular connections, such that I got this kind of anxiety in mind. So one of the key themes for what you just portray for the future, we are going to provide the peace of mind for everyone. Just because satellite communication based on 3GPP NTN will be complementary to the cellular coverages. So once they are emerged perfectly, pretty much it will provide the peace of mind for everybody. No matter where you go, you will get connected. But due to the nature of the limitation constraint of those satellite communication versus cellular coverages, you need to choose a different kind of message way or communication way. But at least you will stay connected all the way.
Right.
And I think what we're going to see is, a little bit like what Apple has done, right? They've rolled out a sort of a service model for this, right? And if you look at what Bullet showed the world at the CES show a couple of, even last week, that was also rolling out their satellite service model, right, in terms of providing a service. So I think that's kind of the initial phase. I mean, we can also imagine, as you mentioned, this getting bundled in with operator packages as well going forward, right? As the operators, the cellular operators provide this as perhaps part of the service as well going forward. So I think we'll see a mix of models in the short term and it rolling out in different ways going forward.
Great. We should wrap up. So any final thoughts that you guys want to share with me?
Yeah, I think at this moment, to consumers, to this industry is a very exciting moment just because the satellite communications becomes a very hot topic, and people appreciate that. And that it is really debut arena. We can really bring in the smartphone users into another stage. Not only communicate with each other, but also carry on the peace of mind in their life in the future.
Wonderful.
Yeah, no, we're excited. We've got a proven solution. We've got customers already demonstrating real devices with this capability. So it's going to be real, very, very soon. And, MediaTek will continue to work, I think, at the leading edge of the 3GPP standardization path to bring this technology forward and the next evolution of the satellite connectivity technology for the future.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I predict this is going to be a standard feature on every phone within 5 years. It's just going to be a no-brainer. It's just going to make life better for everyone. Exactly. Thank you both, Cliff and Finbar, for being on the show again. We're going to continue now with the news and the reviews of the week, but thanks again.
Thank you, Miriam.
Thank you.
And folks, I'm back with Mark Linsangen here. We're going to talk about a bunch of stuff. Hi, Mark. How's it going?
Doing very well. How about you?
I'm happy as a clam because of the new Macs. I just, this is not super mobile because there's some Macs in there that are not.
Sure.
But this, look, I'm not as excited about the Pros simply because I don't need that level of power. Like a lot of people are like, really, Miriam? Come on. And I'm like, well, it's a value thing, right? Like,
yeah.
I have an M2 Air.
Okay.
And honestly, it does everything I need it to do. I'm never feeling like, oh man, I need a faster computer, right? My iMac 27-inch Core i, whatever it is, 7 or something, I feel is a dog slow. Like I feel like I need a better computer. And I've got an SSD and everything.
I totally get you. Like whenever I try to use an Intel-based Mac, it feels like really, really slow compared to, any of my M1 Macs.
So what do you have? What's your setup?
So right now I have a 14-inch M1 Max MacBook Pro.
Nice.
It's got 64 gigs of RAM, 4 terabytes SSD. That's just because this is what I use to make videos, right?
Yeah.
But when the new ones came out or were announced, so here's the thing. Let me back up.
Yeah.
When the Mac Mini was first introduced with M1 chips, I was really hoping they would introduce M1 Pro for Mac Mini. And that's what I was going to pick up initially. But since they didn't do an M1 Pro, I just went for the MacBook Pro. And now that they announced M1 or M2 Pro for Mac Mini, I was like, this is what I've been looking for.
Right. Do you travel a lot though, or not?
I do. Well, yeah. I mean, this year alone, I've got like 4 flights that in the next month.
So you're like me.
Two.
You're always on the road. So it does make sense to have a fast Mac with you when you travel.
Sure. Yes.
Okay.
But it's so nice to edit on a big screen.
For sure.
Bigger screen than a 16-inch MacBook Pro.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, the way I see it is I've always had a mobile Mac because I'm on the road a lot, but it's always been the lighter Mac in terms of performance. I've always been like, as long as I can edit some audio and video and photos, but not like, a 4K timeline of 20 streams, I'm good with a portable Mac. So I've always been kind of what's the word? Comfortably, okay with less performance on that.
Sure.
Right. But so for the longest time, you're going to laugh at this, I had a MacBook 12-inch as my portable.
Oh my God.
The original, but maxed out.
The one with the one USB-C port?
Yeah, correct. But the very original, so not even the fast one. Like the one that because they made a slightly faster one, second gen.
What was the processor on
it? It was
that?
like some kind of Core M, like
Core
ultra
M,
mobile.
right?
Yeah. It didn't have any active
like
cooling.
M5, M7, one of those,
Not even
right?
that. It was just Core M. Like it was probably essentially a Celeron in there. I don't know. It was terrible. But here's the thing. I used it up to the point where I bought a MacBook Air M1.
Right. Wow.
So that gives you perspective, right?
While.
It was still okay. Like I have to say that of course, I bought the MacBook Air M1 during COVID.
Sure.
And so I wasn't obviously traveling as much then, right? Like, relatively speaking, I wasn't traveling as much. So it wasn't a big, I think the last year that I had that, I wasn't using it, right? Like I didn't notice. It was probably a little long in the tooth. But then I got the M1 Air and, simultaneously I have this kind of, not the most recent, but I think like 3 years ago, the most high-end iMac non-Pro you could buy.
Yeah.
And that thing I feel is completely dog slow to me now. At the time it was fine.
Sure.
So I think I was used to being, I guess, patient with my Macs. I didn't feel like it was a problem. And then when I got the M1 Air, basically because I promised myself years ago, I thought that the 12-inch MacBook was going to evolve into an ARM-based computer. I thought that they were going to continue Intel on everything, but that was going to be the one because I didn't think they could do ARM like they did. Like I didn't think they could reach that level of performance at the onset. Like I think they really waited until they could prove that Intel was irrelevant, right?
You know what I would love for Apple to do is to bring back that 12-inch MacBook and put like the base M3, right? There's no Pro, there's no Max. Yeah. And then give us like a 15-inch Air with M3, M3
that's
Pro.
Coming. I think a 15-inch Air with M2 is coming this year.
Right.
I can feel it.
But if you look at their, list of computers, it's like you have a 12-inch, you have a 15-inch Air that's portable, you have the Pros that are 14 and 16, right? So I think it makes sense to have all of those like lightweight laptops available as well.
Yeah, so I would love that, and that's kind of ideally what I want. But when the M1 Air came out, I was like, this is the ARM Mac. It's a bit bigger and heavier, but I'm going to get it, right? So I did, and oh my God, I was like, I can't believe this. I basically made it my main computer for a while. But
it's
then
a great computer.
I needed the bigger screen, and my iMac is new enough now in terms of software updates that it no longer supports target display mode. Oh. I don't know if you know that. For a while, you could use a 27-inch iMac as a display, but they removed that from the firmware at some point with one of the OS updates. I think when they left the 32-bit apps behind, whatever version of the OS that was. I think it was, I want to say the one after Mojave or Mojave maybe is when they just turned off displays target. Because I was all excited. I was like, I'm going to plug this into my iMac display and no.
And it doesn't work. Yeah.
But so the M1 Air was a revelation. At that point, I was like almost tempted to go out buy a Mac Mini. So since we're going to get onto that in a second. And, but I was like, I need a good display and I can't use my iMac as display mode.
Yeah.
So I'm almost tempted to gut out the iMac. You've seen the videos of Luke Miani and stuff.
Videos.
They've done the thing where there's actually boards now that I sold third party that like integrate cleanly. Like you can modify an iMac 27-inch with a 5K screen and make it into a bona fide monitor.
Wow.
That aesthetically looks good, uses the existing ports and the whole shebang.
That's so cool.
Gives you a hub and everything.
And how much is that?
It's like $300 or something, plus all the manual labor, right?
Okay.
But it comes as a kit, so it even includes the little adhesive gasket around the screen.
Yeah.
But I feel kind of bad to throw out the guts of this kind of perfectly good. So I'm more tempted to go on eBay and buy a non-functional iMac 27 sense. With that has bad GPU or something, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. And then just DIY it.
Because here's the thing, I've been looking at the displays, Lenovo, LG, Dell,
Samsung.
I can't make sense of them. Some people are saying they don't work properly with Macs. Some people are like, there's some, it doesn't support all the resolutions.
Yeah.
And the Apple displays are just, there's no way I'm spending that kind of money. It's stupid.
Yeah, I have one.
It's stupid.
I have one right
boy,
now.
okay.
And I mean, here's the thing. I do agree. I've tested a bunch of other non-Apple displays where, you try to wake up your Mac from sleep and it doesn't do it right away. It's a big deal, right? Instant wake is a big deal, especially for me, having used M1, M2, processors where it's like instant on. So I kind of get a little impatient. And then so the thing I did was buy the Apple Studio display, and it's honestly worth the investment for me. It's not for everybody, but for me, I really enjoy it.
Hearing it from someone who is invested in the ecosystem and like I'm not going to go buy one because still I think it's too much for my needs, but it's nice to see that it's actually working out for you because a lot of people I've talked to, it's great, but I'm not sure it's worth the money. So, you're kind of a counterpoint to that. And it's kind of good to hear that. Basically, I'm realizing we've gone 9 minutes into this part of the show and we haven't mentioned, of course, if you guys, unless you crawl from under a rock right now, Apple announced the M2 Pro and Max chips and announced new MacBook Pros to go alongside those. But more importantly, they announced a refreshed Mac Mini that has both the M2, like before, like with the M1, but has now an M2 Pro, which according to some leak benchmarks might be putting the Mac Studio to shame.
That's what I'm hearing.
So that's kind of why we're having this whole discussion, because I'm at the point now, Mark, where I live in two places. I'm here in San Francisco today in front of my iMac, which is a nice setup, big screen. It's kind of getting long and dated. I've been considering all these, do I gut the inside and buy Mac Mini? And until now, I was like, buy Mac Mini M1. I'd be perfectly happy with that.
Sure.
But then they threw me a curveball with this Mac Mini M2. And I'm like, okay. And then more importantly, I also have a place in Vancouver now because I'm kind of commuting. And there I've been just using my MacBook Air M2. By the way, at some point along the way, somebody gifted me, oh, they're so lovely, a MacBook Air M2. So I have an M1 and an M2.
That's so awesome.
So I've been using the M1 as kind of like a desktop in Vancouver, and then the M2 as my mobile machine.
Is your portable, right?
Right. Since I travel a lot. And of course, I don't have a monitor for the M1 MacBook Air. It's just sitting there. I'm just using the Retina display, and it's a little cramped, right?
It's tiny. It is
tiny. So maybe I should bite the bullet and just find a good monitor that's not Apple and buy two of them, and then buy the M2 Mini for San Francisco. Or I should just buy two 27-inch iMacs and gut them and turn them into, I don't know. Like, this is the thing.
If you have the time to do that, then
I'm a pretty good tinkerer. It's not more time. It's more a matter of like, I want to do it well and do it right. Like, that's the thing. And those displays on the iMacs are really, really nice. Like,
oh, they're amazing.
Just incredible still today. Yeah. So I'm super excited because they did an M2 Mac Mini, but they also did an M2 Pro Mac Mini.
Yeah, that's what got me. M2 for $599, was it? Is it $499
yeah, that's the other
or
thing.
$599?
The price is the price even lower than it was?
It's $100 lower than before. And then on top of that, if you are a student or professor at a school, you could get the EDU discount, which shaves $100 off even more. So it starts at $499.
So pro tip, unless you're in a rush and your Mac Mini right now, you have one and it's literally falling apart, I would say wait for the refurbs to come out.
Yeah.
Because
definitely.
the refurbished Apple Store has always been a wonderful experience for me. And for something like that is going to sit in the corner, and I'm not even going to notice if it has some kind of like defect.
Scuff, yeah.
And honestly, I have never bought a refurbished Apple product that was cosmetically defective. I don't know how they do it.
Same.
They definitely replace whatever parts need to be replaced. It's like, I don't even see why you wouldn't buy a refurb at this point.
I bought an iPad Pro 11-inch, the 2018 one, like the very first 11-inch Pro, and it was refurb and it looked brand new.
And so if you're listening and you're going, I didn't want to tune in for MediaTek satellite internet on phones, followed by two people gushing about Macs, there will be phone news. Just hang tight.
Yes.
I just need to gush for a moment because look, every time I use my MacBook Airs, either the M2 or M1, I'm just like blown away still today. And every time I use this iMac, I'm just like, it's okay, it's fine. But just processing audio in Audacity, which is my main audio editor. I know a lot of people are like, Miriam, come on, spend the money, buy something reasonably good. You're a professional. Dude, I don't need it.
It works.
I worked in video games before I was a tech journalist for 2 decades. And I came from Cool Edit Pro, okay, in my line of work. Now, granted, I was a software engineer. I didn't actually create audio content for the games much, but I always had to have some sort of audio editor around. And that evolved eventually into, Cool Edit was one of the programs that evolved, I think, into Adobe Audition. But the point is, I've always had some kind of free open source editor. And so Audacity has been in my toolbox forever. And as not 100% perfect as it is, it's great because it's cross-platform. If I'm ever stuck on a friend's PC and I need to edit my podcast, I can just do it, etc. So I want right now an Mini M2, probably non-pro because I don't need that kind of horsepower, but I probably want the 512 gig version, so I'll probably have to spend $200 more because that's the problem now. You can't upgrade them. And damn, Apple spends a lot of money on these.
It really is a lot of money from RAM to SSD. It's crazy.
So which one would you pick since you have an M1 Pro MacBook?
No, so I have an M1 Max.
You have a Max. Okay. So you're not going to upgrade that, right?
So I'm not upgrading the MacBook Pro. I'm keeping this laptop for a while. But what I did was place an order for an M2 Pro Mac Mini with, I believe, a terabyte of SSD. I didn't upgrade the processor just because I didn't really need it. But I did upgrade the RAM to 32 gigs, which is the max that you can put on a.
You
M2
do a lot
Pro.
of 4K video editing, though, right?
I do a ton of 4K video editing. I do a ton of After Effects work sometimes too.
Okay.
And so I just want to be able to, sit down at a computer if I'm not on the go and edit, in front of this desk.
And be super productive, and that makes perfect sense. See, I do like most of my videos on my YouTube are 1080p still. I'm just lazy, and sometimes I do some 4K work, but I never do After Effects or anything. And at most, I'm mixing 2 or 3, videos in Final Cut. So, and then a few effects here and there that are built in. I don't have any plugins or anything. So I'm pretty lightweight. That's why the M2 Air and the M1 Air are just fine. Even this iMac is it's a little slow for 4K, but the point is that's why I don't think I'm gonna get the M2 Pro for my Mac Mini. But for Vancouver, that would be a good combo to have. That and a 4K monitor of some kind, or 5K 27-inch iMac. I really need to look into that more.
What is nice about the M2 Pro is that you get an additional 2 Thunderbolt ports in the back, right? M2,
you do? I didn't catch that.
Yeah, M2 also. Well, the regular M2 Mac Mini only gives you 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports and 2 USB A's.
I knew that.
And if you get to M2
I didn't
Pro,
realize
you get an additional 2.
4, just like the Intel Mac Minis.
And an updated HDMI port.
Okay, so basically all the benefits you're getting on the new MacBook Pros as well, I believe. They get,
so you
the
could
extra
do
ports,
HDMI
no, but the
2.1.
HDMI 2.1, that's a huge update, right? Because
huge.
people can do 8K right now.
8K at 60, I'm pretty sure.
And high refresh rates, right? On 4K.
And 4K up to 240 hertz.
Ooh, juicy for games. I mean, does anybody play games on a Mac?
If you want a game on a Mac, right?
I know.
Maybe.
Well, look, I think this is exciting. I mean, I want to talk about 2 more things on this topic real quick. And it's the, are they kind of eating their own selves here? Like their own tail with the Mac Studio being outperformed by the top of the line, Mac Mini. And then the next question is this weird announcement that kind of came in mid-January with an accompanying video that looked like it was going to be some kind of keynote video.
Right.
What are your thoughts on both of these things? Starting with maybe the Mac Studio tail thing.
Right. So the Mac Studio, I've actually been holding out on Mac Studio. I've been wanting a desktop computer from Apple that's, an Apple Silicon computer. But what drew me away from Mac Studio was the price. And given that I already have a laptop with like a similar processor, it just didn't make sense. So I was like, I'll just wait for M2 Pro, Max, or Ultra when the next Studio comes out. And actually, if you price out the M2 Pro Mac Mini, you can actually, I think it's going to be around the same price as a Mac Studio, an M1 Max Mac Studio.
Wow.
And I think they are sort of biting their own tail to some extent just because of the pricing. But if you look at it, I feel like Mac Studio still has its perks with, more reports.
Yeah.
You have more graphics cores technically with M1 Max. So it's not all about the CPU performance. So if you use more GPU power, maybe you'll lean more into the Studio.
Okay.
But if your tasks are more CPU oriented, then maybe the M2 Pro Mac Mini might make more sense for you. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel like there's also like a bigger case means better cooling. And of course, the M1 Max, is it?
Yeah, M1 Max and Ultra.
The Ultra, right, we know it's much heavier, that Mac Studio, right? It has a much better cooling system. And that's what that case was designed for. But if you look at the Max, right, it's kind of half empty in there. So in a way, like, this is my engineering self thinking, like you're probably, like when you have extra room to spare, like physically in this case, but also thermally, you know, you're that thing is going to be bulletproof in terms of reliability. Whereas that
for sure
Mac Mini M2 Pro might get kind of to the edge of the thermals that case can handle, right?
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people are worried because, like, did they change anything inside for the Pro? Because I know that M2 runs a little hotter than M1, especially on the Air.
But I noticed it on the Air, actually.
Yeah, so you have M1 and M2 to compare.
Like if I put them both on my lap, the M2 doing the same task does it faster, slightly, but it does get it a little bit warmer and battery is a little less. But I still think my M1 Air is my battery champion.
Oh,
but not
absolutely.
by much. Not by much, though.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're looking for battery, I feel like M1 Air is still amazing.
It really is. But I wish I had the better camera and the MagSafe.
Sure.
That's the two things. I mean, the display is slightly better too, but honestly, I don't really notice it that much.
Yeah. MagSafe is a game changer, though.
The camera I do notice. And the MagSafe, man, it's really nice. It's just really nice.
It just frees up another port, you know?
When I travel, I don't use a MagSafe. I just use USB-C because I have
Same.
So since I travel a lot, it's kind of redundant, but oh well.
Sure. Yeah.
But look, I'm excited. This is a big, exciting announcement. What do you think about this? The timing and the weird, like, oh, hey, we have a video to go side with this.
Right. So, I mean, I was reading online that announcement was actually supposed to happen in October.
Right. That's what everybody's saying.
I'm not sure why they postponed it. Could be because
supply
chain issues again, per usual, is their usual response nowadays. But yeah, I mean, January, it's a weird product cycle, I guess, for them. It's unusual, really.
Yeah, but I mean, I personally don't think it's a problem. Like, I feel like if you don't have a Apple Silicon Pro Mac right now, and you need to be portable, like, it's a no-brainer, right?
Oh,
in the
yeah,
same
for
way
sure.
as the M1, MacBook Pro was a no-brainer when it came out, the one you have.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the people I know that have the M1 MacBook Pro have the M1 Pro, I guess. Because the Mac seems to be a little much, but maybe I'm wrong. You've got the Max, so tell me.
I've got the Max, and I mean, battery life is a little bit worse than obviously the M1 Pro. I have a buddy who has the same machine, but they just got an M1 Pro instead, up to 32 gigs, and I think he got 8 terabytes of storage.
Oh my God, wow.
Yeah, I don't know why he did that, but he was just like, I mean, this is going to be my laptop for the next 5-6 years, so I don't plan on upgrading it.
So here's the thing that I'm a little worried about. Actually, you're a Mac user for a long time. You know this. You understand this. Is I used to keep my Macs for 5 years, no problem, right? In the Intel time span, even before that on PowerPC. Like that MacBook 12-inch I had for 5 years.
Yeah.
And this iMac is 3 years old, and it could probably go another year. I did add some RAM to it at some point. That helped.
Sure.
Intel's really like RAM. Whereas the Apple Silicon doesn't seem to mind if you're short on RAM. Both my Airs are only 8 gigs, and I'm honestly surprisingly fine with that.
Yeah.
I got extra storage on them, like a 512, because I need a little bit of room.
Yeah.
But I didn't get like even a terabyte or anything like that, because I've always had 512 on all my Macs. Basically, I've had 8 gigs and 512s for the last 5 years, and I went to 32 gigs on my iMac because that seemed to really help. At one point, it started choking. I think when I upgraded to Big Sur or something, it was just like, ugh.
Yeah, it was choking. Yeah.
So, yeah. So anyway, I'm excited about these. I think that what I'm more excited about, honestly, is, as you said, like, I don't think it's going to happen, but like a smaller Air. And then even better than that, what I want to see is this 15-inch Air. Not for me, but like my spouse, for example, is on an Intel, last generation of the Intel MacBook Air, like the final one.
Yeah.
Just like they're hurting hard.
I still know a couple of people who have their Intel MacBook Airs, and they definitely need an upgrade.
Yeah, so basically I'm thinking, let's get them on, and they want a bigger screen. So, but the Pro doesn't make sense for what they do. So let's get them on a 15-inch Air M2 when that comes out, hopefully later this year,
I hope so.
All right, let's switch gears and talk about some of the other news we have this week. So, I just want to kind of squeeze it in here because I think it's kind of funny. Funny and fun, because I'm an audio person. I cannot get excited about this. But Sony launched 2 new Walkman, right? And if you know what that means in 2023, it doesn't mean they launched cassette or Discmans or mini disc players that they have all been branded Walkman. This means it's a digital audio player, Android based. Like they've been doing this for years now. But these are really, really nice. And some of the specs in terms of audio, if you're into audio, are very enticing. If it almost makes sense to me if you're really into audio and you have some high bit rate audio, high sample rate audio, like FLAC stuff or some, some DSD, some SACD rips that you want to listen to. This is the way to go. Probably makes more sense than having a smartphone for that because the headphone amp and everything in that thing is better. So what's your take on these?
And it looks cool. So I've personally have never had a Walkman. However, I do have something to show you in video. I've found an old phone of mine. It's a Sony Ericsson Walkman.
Yes, the Walkman phone. Yes, I had that from Sony Ericsson.
Yeah, as you can see right here. And it's from Singular. It's funny. But
yours is the actual official branded carrier one. Unreal.
Yeah. And I love this thing. I love listening to music on this. And this is the closest thing that I could get to having a Walkman. And seeing this news was kind of cool because you don't really see a lot of digital media players nowadays just because we all have our smartphones with Spotify, Apple Music.
But the thing is, you can still use this for Spotify and Apple Music. Just you need a Wi-Fi connection.
Android. Right.
And that's maybe what your smartphone is for. and your other pocket gives you Wi-Fi connectivity to your music player. And this thing is, they look pretty small and compact and really well made and also not cheap. But
not
at
cheap.
the same time,
how much is this? Like $300?
I can't remember. I think the cheaper one of the two is like $399 or something.
Wow.
And then
so
the
you
higher
have to
end
love
one,
audio. You have
the
to
higher
love
end
audio.
one is, they're basically identical, but the higher end one has a slightly bigger screen. It has much better audio electronics, including some like proper capacitors and stuff in there.
Yeah.
Which probably won't age super well, meaning like, this is one, I don't know if you follow this because I'm old enough that I had mini disc and I had cassette Walkman and I had Discman. And there's like the whole cottage industry nowadays of people rediscovering those mediums, right?
Oh,
Buying on eBay and stuff.
I had a MD player growing up.
So and the biggest problem with a lot of the older ones is that either one of two things. Of course, the belts need to be replaced. They gunk up and get old. On anything that's mechanical that has a belt, which is mostly the cassette players, because the Discman, early Discman had a belt, but the later Discman were direct drive, where the spindle is directly driven by the motor. The little carriage that moves the laser around has always been on some sort of like screwed mechanism, so it's never had a belt usually. And the mini discs never had belt because they're so miniaturized, everything is super ultra compact. But those need to be replaced. Of course, there's no belts here, but the capacitors is going to be something that a lot of higher end products with capacitors, including even power supplies on old Macs and old audio gear, go bad. They leak, and then you have to replace them, and it's a real hassle. And this thing is so small that 20 years from now, not to mention Android won't work anymore on this 20 years from now properly.
That's the thing.
Who knows it'll even connect to Wi-Fi anymore, because you know how
at that
I have
point,
some old gear from 20 years ago, like some old, PCs that had like external Wi-Fi cards that can't connect to Wi-Fi anymore because everything is WPA now and they don't support that.
That's right.
Like, Wi-Fi B still works. Like some routers will still let you fall back to, the super slow original Wi-Fi, but you need WPA at least to connect for security. WEP is no longer supported, and some of these cards only support WEP. So for my little collection of old laptops and things that sometimes I want to run Linux on a really obscure old, like Toshiba Portage or something. Yeah. I have actually an old Airport Express that still supports WEP that I've got set up to be just it's connected wire to my network as like a separate sub network, and it lets me connect these devices that I kind of legacy devices basically.
That's awesome. That's a keeper for sure.
So, I always think about this with technology. It's like, we're rediscovering all this old portable tech from 20, 30 years ago. I mean, younger people are like, I know a lot of the people are buying old Walkman and Discman and record players. Yeah. And I think this is awesome because there's something really wonderful about having a tangible format in your hand, like a medium that's real. But I'm worried that we're never going to experience, like if you pull out an old iPhone right now, you can't connect to the App Store and download apps, because it no longer lets you.
You had to be there. You had to be there.
You have to kind of use it as is. And I'm worried that, and even some phones can't be activated anymore. If you buy like a brand new iPhone and it's an old enough OS on there, like, something that's never been opened and sat on the box. Like you're like, go to eBay and you buy like an original iPhone 3G or something, right? Yeah. Because you're like, oh, I remember this. And it's kind of like, I want to put it in my collection.
You've got an iPhone 4
like
behind
an exploded one. Yeah.
Yeah.
For those of you on Patreon who are watching the video version of this podcast, by the way, in case you don't know, there is a video version of the podcast, comes out early, less edited, where you can see us talk. And more importantly, you can see the Walkman phone that Mark brandished in front of the camera earlier. Yeah. Brandishing it again. And behind Mark right now is an exploded original iPhone. Is it an original?
4. iPhone 4, which is my first iPhone that I saved up for because I couldn't pay. How much was the 3G
it was
and 3GS?
Expensive. I can't remember.
Exactly. Yeah, and then I think around the iPhone 4 is when they kind of trickled down the price a little bit. I just
zoomed you in because I had you in a push to stamp window, and I can see now it's an iPhone 4. I love the 4. Anyway, the point is, if you have the you want to collect, nowadays some of these iPhones, if they're brand new in the box and you actually go through the the losing all that value of opening the box up and actually using them, you will find that some of them won't activate. And that is sad because then you can't even use what's on them. Like you can't just use them to listen to music, take photos, not listen to music because there's no music on there, but let's take some notes, take photos, whatever it might be. And it might not work with iTunes either in terms of like copying that data back. So you might have to like, maybe if you're lucky, you can set up a Yahoo email account and send those photos out or something. And this is where Android is kind of superior, right? Because you know that you can run ADB and it'll still connect to the file system and you'll still get your photos off of some like ancient like Galaxy S2 or something if you need to, right?
And plus those older devices had micro SD slots. So,
Right. Anyway, I'll link to an inverse story that talks a little more about these two Sony Walkman. If you guys are into that, I just love that Sony's still doing this. They're doing nope. Like, I don't care that Apple stopped making the iPod Touch. We're going to make our own version of this.
Yeah.
We've been doing that. Like, this is not the first. They've done this for years now. For at least 5 to 10 years, they've been making Android-based high-end music players.
So I was just wondering, like, how small is this Walkman going to look like? Because I know from the pictures I've seen a couple and they look tiny. They look very tiny.
Yeah, I think it's like deck of card size.
Do you think it'll be like this small or?
No, bigger than that. Bigger than the phone. That? I mean, those phones were so small back then,
I know. I can't believe we were actually using phones like these though back in the day. Going to what we have now,
it's like kind of crazy.
Kids growing up now, they're like, what is that? Is that a toy? Yeah, it's wild to me.
Yeah, so this little one, the cheaper one, has a 3.6-inch touchscreen. Like,
okay.
Think original T-Mobile G1 HTC. Yeah. Like, think original iPhone, that's 3.5-inch.
3.5, yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right.
Wow, that's small, right?
That's still tiny. Wow.
So anyway, these are going to be like deck of card. Like basically size. And I think the slightly better model has a slightly bigger screen.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so $355 for the cheaper model. It doesn't have the super fancy audio circuitry. Mm-hmm. And then we've got no pricing on the higher end one with all the gold plating and the oxygen-free copper and the it's got a balanced headphone jack, the 4.4 millimeter super rare. Headphone jack. It's kind of crazy. Yeah. So anyway, I like the idea that you can get a dedicated music player. Would I spend the money on it? Probably not. But if Sony sent me a review unit, I'd use it. 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Honestly, I would just bring that instead of my phone if I go on walks. I love going on morning walks. And whether I'm using a Pixel Watch or my Apple Watch Ultra, and it has cellular, so I can just leave my phone at home. Bring that Walkman with me, just, go for a walk.
And I think this is targeted towards people who have a music collection physically in file format, like in FLAC or, some sort of DSD, super high quality audio. And this takes micro SD, so it's got built-in storage, but you can expand it. And, that's the idea. Like, you're probably not going to want to stream Apple Music or Spotify on this.
No,
you probably want to download your Apple Music, like lossless Apple Audio or 360 audio or whatever.
But it's still not going to compare to files that like FLAC, for example.
No. The lossless Apple stuff is probably going to compare. But I think the nothing that Spotify has is going to come close.
Yeah, Spotify's
you can
not
go
doing
Tidal.
Wi-Fi, right?
Tidal, if you have a subscription to Tidal, you'll really benefit on this product, I think.
Yeah.
So, and I love that the battery life is expressed in FLAC playback. Like, that's the reference. That just tells you everything you need to know right there.
That's amazing.
But yeah, this is pretty dope. And then the other thing a lot of, like this article mentions, but a lot of people always ask me about is if you have a pair of Sony headphones or earbuds or a Sony phone, or this, you'll see this DSEE setting.
Right.
And what this is it's an upsampler. So if your music is sampled at 44.1 or 48, you can upsample it to 96 or whatever. And a lot of people are like, does it really matter? And it doesn't matter unless you have the hearing that you can actually notice the difference. Some people can. Yeah. I'm kind of at the edge of that. Mm-hmm. And if you have really good headphones or earbuds or like really high quality wired Because as soon as you Bluetooth, you have a codec in there and you kind of kill everything.
Right.
Even though LDAC and stuff are really good codecs like aptX HD and others, you're still not going to benefit from the quality. But this applet sampling technology, it does work. It does work. And now it's AI based too. So I think it makes some intelligent choices on how to resample, which I think is something you can definitely use machine learning to teach an algorithm, because we have this entire repository of hundreds of thousands of music albums to train the AI with. So
right.
I bet you that
I
works
totally
really
get
well.
you.
Yeah. Anyway, let's switch gears to a bunch of news for upcoming unpacked Samsung Galaxy
I'm excited.
S23 series phones. Samsung just announced the ISOCELL HP2 200 megapixel sensor, and that's going to be the sensor in the S23 Ultra. We knew that phone was going to have a 200 megapixel camera. That's been leaked to death. But now we know which sensor it's going to use. And the reason I want to bring this up with you, Mark, is because I feel it's really interesting that there are essentially 3 Samsung 200 megapixel sensors now. HP1, HP2, HP3. Oh, very, very clever naming convention here. But what's interesting is that HP1 was the original, had 0.64 micron pixels.
Okay.
So that's the one that's in the Moto Edge 30 Ultra, in the Xiaomi 12T Pro,
right?
And in the Infinix Zero Ultra, I want to say. Anyway, that sensor pixel bins 4:1 or 16:1. So you get 1.28 microns at 4:1, which gives you a 50 megapixel image, and you get 2.56 microns at 16:1. That gives you a 12.5 megapixel image.
Wow.
Now, there are other benefits. It does 2x zoom lossless, kind of like the iPhone does and the Pixel 7 series does. But it does it at the sensor level, which is really cool.
That's amazing.
All right. And then I've experienced that on my review of the Xiaomi 12T Pro will be, or is up. By the time you listen to this podcast, folks, will be up on Geekspin. I just reviewed it. I know it's a few months old, but I wanted to play with that 200 megapixel camera, and I wrote 1,000 words on the 200 megapixel camera.
Wow.
So I've done a lot of testing and practicing, and my takeaway is that it's not as good. Like the phone itself, the camera system itself is not as good as what you get on a Pixel 7 or iPhone 14 Pro or a Galaxy S22 Ultra. But there are some tangible benefits to this crazy binning technology and the zooming in particular. You can zoom in at 2x on that thing and just get really high quality photos no matter what, even in low light. And then there's a 50 megapixel shooting mode that is the crispest, most detailed thing I've ever seen. Like the 200 megapixel mode is kind of crap because it doesn't benefit from a lot of the computational processing that you can do.
Yeah. It still looks compressed.
You need a lot of light to get really good benefits out of it. And the image sizes are crazy. 60 megabytes, 50 megabytes for a JPEG.
It really is a lot.
But at 50 megapixel, you're getting images that are 15, 16 megabytes, still manageable. And you still get all the benefits of HDR stacks and like all that good stuff. And it's crisp as a tasty, delicious donut. Like really good. So that's HP1, right? And that's 6 months old.
Yeah.
HP3 was announced, and I think that's been making it to some mid-range phones. I don't know much about it, but pixel size, I think, is 0.56 micron. It's the smallest pixel size ever. And of course, you can bin those 4:1, 16:1, you get the same benefits. But this HP2 sits in the middle, hence the name, and it's 0.6 micron. So not 6.4, not 5.6. It's 6. And that's interesting to me that Samsung would pick not the top sensor, but a newer
slightly
sensor
less
with smaller pixels for their flagship S23 Ultra. Now, of course, it does have some tricks up its sleeve. And one of the things that it can do is the HDR stacking stuff that I was telling you guys about earlier that every phone does today. Apparently, I think it can do this faster. And that might be why they picked that. because when you do HDR video, this is going to become a thing. So yeah, it can do faster frame rates and stuff.
Yeah, like I think 15 frames at 200
still
megapixels.
Photography, which is impressive because such a large sensor is really hard to capture, video and still photos very quickly with. So
right, and it could do I think 4K HDR at 60 frames per second, which is pretty impressive. But I'm just curious how it's gonna take advantage of the megapixels and what kind of software tricks.
So this is where I think the other big difference is going to be between the Xiaomi I just reviewed. By the way, that Xiaomi has an f/1.7 lens on that 200 megapixel, better than the other two phones, which I think are 1.9 and 2.0, which tells me that hopefully Samsung will do the same because the S22 Ultra with 108 megapixel is an f/1.8 lens. I'm hoping they can do 1.7 because again, more light. But
more light
it's
into the
hard
sensor,
to do a very fast lens like that on a physically large sensor because you need a lot of depth. And unless you want the camera pod to be gigantic, it is literally a gigantic camera pod on the Xiaomi. Yeah. It's like sticking out.
It is. It really is.
Like 5 millimeters or something. But the point is, this is exciting. This is interesting. I think that we're going to see some improvements here because of the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. I think that's what's holding back the Xiaomi right now. The sensor has some cool tricks up its sleeve, but that 8 Plus Gen 1, the ISP is not optimized to work with a 200 megapixel sensor all the time, every picture, every video, right? Yeah. And it's not struggling, but I think that they're not able to do the optimizations they need to do to really take advantage of this kind of, sensor. And so I'm not trying to be optimistic too much here because we kind of got burned with the S20 Ultra. Remember the first 108 megapixel sensor?
Yeah, and it
wasn't super
great.
well tuned, right? But then S21 Ultra and S22 Ultra are super great. So, but I'm optimistic because this is not their first sensor. And, the 8 Gen 2 will give it some processing benefits.
Right.
And I was still very impressed with what I saw from that first gen sensor on an 8 Plus Gen 1 on the Xiaomi 12T Pro. Like there is I went into it going come on 200 megapixels. And then I came out of it going
I said the same thing.
That 50 megapixel mode is so crisp. I'm like, wow. Like,
yeah, it was really sharp. Yeah.
And then, but the 12.5 megapixel default mode was not that competitive in my opinion. It felt actually softer than it should be. And then
it wasn't special.
The zoom was pretty good at 2x. 4x was and anything beyond that was not very competitive. You're better off pulling out the Pixel 7 base model with the super res zoom where it does
I love it.
Yeah.
See.
I've got my Pixel 7 Pro right here.
I got the 7, the regular one right here.
Yeah.
I love it.
So look, I just wanted to see what you thought of this because you obviously you've used the 12T Pro, right? And you've got a Pixel 7. So what's your thoughts on this? Do you think I don't think it's necessary, but I think it's interesting that they're experimenting.
So for me, I mean, I focus a lot on my reviews on like the camera performance just because that's where a lot of the bigger changes are every single year or every single month that there's a new smartphone. It's like, every spec is almost the same. They perform the same. Software might be different, but cameras are probably the biggest, difference in all these phones that we use. And for me, I think the 12T Pro, like you said, it shoots really, really good 50 megapixel photos. The 200 megapixel photos are massive. And the zooming capabilities, when you actually crop into that 200 megapixel photo, it's okay, but you could still tell that it's heavily compressed or just processed where it's taken on a smartphone. There are some phones that are almost just as good as mirrorless cameras nowadays, like Pixel 7 Pro, Pixel 7, even the Xiaomi 12S Ultra. In my opinion,
my God, what a beast that is! I know.
I prefer having a bigger sensor than a bigger megapixel.
Me too.
That's just
choice.
Me.
Absolutely.
And the same goes for like the actual cameras that I use to produce videos. It's like I'd rather shoot on a full frame camera rather than a APS-C crop camera, just because one, I have more depth of field, I have better dynamic range, and it's just all comes down to the sensor. Really, it's not always about the megapixels. So for me, I mean, I say this in every review. I think the Pixel 7 Pro, Pixel 7 takes one of the better photos on Android.
I mean, I put them side by side, and I didn't do a side by side in my review. This is a review of the whole phone. I didn't want to do a comparison. I wasn't paid for doing a comparison here, and I would have literally written 3,000 words if I'd done a comparison.
Yeah.
But I feel like I did put them side by side. Yeah, the Pixel 7 Pro, I mean, especially with the telephoto, just blew it away.
I think it's just more consistent, right? The Pixel 7s, Pixel 7 Pros are more consistent wherever you shoot, outside, indoors, poor lighting. It's just the white balance too, in my opinion, is better.
Yes. I think overall there needs more tuning, but here's the thing. You reviewed it early on, right? Because it's gotten a couple of software updates and it's gotten better. So they're tuning that camera. Okay. It's definitely better. I still feel that in 12.5 megapixel, it's soft. So it's kind of a one-trick pony in a way. It's like, you want to shoot at 50 megapixel? Awesome.
Yeah.
You want to zoom at 2x? Awesome. Everything else, meh. Because honestly, low light, yes, you get 16 to 1 pixel, but then you get these 2.56, micron pixels. Lovely. But the low light performance isn't any better because it's still shooting at that 12.5 megapixel mode that is just soft. As you said, there's like a lot of either compression artifacts or noise reduction or something happening that's just soft. And like the Pixel and the iPhone and the S22 Ultra are just going to blow it away there. And so I feel like that's just tuning. There's no doubt that sensor can do the job. There's no doubt about it. It's just more like they need to tune it. And so that's why I can't really recommend this phone right now. But I feel like if you are looking for the crispest, high-res, daytime or lower light, but not super dark kind of scenes, that phone, that 50 megapixel mode, delicious.
It's great. Yeah.
It's really nice. So let's talk quickly about a bunch of leaks and rumors. Of course, I'm not going to dwell on this much, but the specs are now very well leaked for the S23 series. I'll put two links to GSM Arena that have kind of summarize it all for us in a nice way, since they're like the big database holder of all things phone. Yeah, so the S23 Ultra and S23 Plus and regular S23 are well documented. Check out the specs. And there's really no surprises here, right, Mark?
No. I mean, it's everything that we pretty much expected. I think from what I'm looking at spec-wise, it's pretty much just like a refinement of S22.
Very evolutionary, yep.
They didn't really do much in terms of design that's different from S22. Maybe slightly, better uniformity all throughout the design, but spec-wise, I mean, it's pretty much what we've expected.
I think people are going to like some people are going to like the new camera pod, which has more like 3 independent little lenses on the lesser S23s. And for the Ultra, it looks so similar to the 22 Ultra that, of course, we know we got that 200 megapixel ISOCELL HP2 now. We know we have 8 Gen 2 across the board. So, I think that display sizes, batteries, all that seems to be very evolutionary. But hey, we're like, 2 weeks away now? So
2 weeks away.
10 days away even.
Yeah. We're getting there. Folks. So we're eventually going to find out what it really is.
Be ready for a tidal wave of like when Apple does the iPhone, where that's all we're going to talk about it till MWC.
Pretty much.
Another little tidbit of interest in the news is that Dave 2D, awesome YouTube creator up from Canada, from Toronto, got his hands on a Pixel Fold dummy, the kind of devices that are used by case makers to make sure that validate that their cases are going to fit the phone. So we can trust, hopefully, this to be the final design, because they wouldn't be putting dummies out there for the case makers yet. And he got his hands on one, and I will let you watch the video, and I'm going to ask you, Mark, what your thoughts were, because I think it's really showing us clearly how it slots in between the Z Fold from Samsung and the Fine N series from Oppo, right? In terms of size.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love the Oppo's N2. Yeah, the N2. the size on this is amazing. So if we could get something like that for the Pixel Fold, I am 100%
It's closer to
down.
the Find N2 than to the Z Fold 4, it seems.
Which is I'm okay with, because I
me too.
actually
I'm 100% on board.
I love the Find N2's bold, like the outer display, much better than having like a much taller display.
It's like having an iPhone mini in front of you when you use it
That's
closed.
right.
It's just a bit thicker and heavier. Of course, it's a little lighter on the N2 now.
I also have the Xiaomi Mix Fold 2.
Oh,
which,
nice.
In my opinion, was it was my favorite from last year until I got my hands on the Oppo Find N2. But this literally feels like you're using a normal phone when it's folded.
Closed. Yeah, because of the thinness of it.
Yeah, and it completely shuts flat, right?
Yeah.
And then when you open it up, it's like you have like a tablet, which is amazing. So
we're going to get that
great.
from the Pixel Fold. Like, it looks like Dave did a measurement of the thickness. It's 5 millimeters open, so it's going to be close to 10 millimeters closed. That's like a slightly thicker phone. It's going to be close to normal. And then
I'm okay with that.
Does fold flat, which because it's using the same kind of like teardrop hinge mechanism as the Oppo. Speaking of which, by the way, my Oppo Find N2 review unit is coming still. Somehow they completely forgot about me this year. They sent me the original Find N last year, but then on time. But this time I was like, hey guys. And they're like, oh, sorry, crap. And then they're like, oh, we're out of units. Let's see if we can get you one.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so I'm just like, hey guys, you forgot.
Well, I will say, just to spoil it for you, you're going to love it. So.
No, I know I'm going to love it because I love the N. And I've seen everybody's video now. You guys have kind of spoiled it for me. It's okay, though. I do have the Red Magic 8 Pro here, folks. So that's a cool phone. So stay tuned for that. My review is going to be coming up on Hot Hardware at some point. Last bit of news. There are some Pixel 8 rumors. I don't want to dwell on them too much, but I'm going to link to an Android Police article where they seem to be summarizing everything we know. What stands out to me is that we're going to see some new sensors potentially on the camera systems. So
which might be a good thing.
Good thing, right?
Might be.
Yeah, it could be.
I mean, how long were they using the old sensor before they updated the Pixel 6 one? From Pixel 1 through 5, right?
Yeah.
And
then, look, they did manage to update the software and tune the 6 and 6 Pro to be pretty decent in the end. And of course, the Tensor is really doing a lot of the hefty lifting because the sensors are pretty similar, right? Other than they've gone all Samsung now on the 7 and 7 Pro. So I expect this to be still all Samsung, but with some newer sensors. And I'm actually feeling confident because I feel like Google's kind of gotten the memo, right? They can't have their hardware stagnate too much. I kind of almost feel that it might be a little too early to upgrade that hardware. Like, I feel like I want to see
like they
more.
Could do something more.
I want to see better Tensor performance in terms of especially efficiency and battery life before I want even new sensors. But if somehow they can give us even better HDR and better low light performance, if we can get another one of those Pixel 2 moments, remember when the Pixel 2 just blew us away with low light? Yeah. And I remember I was in Hong Kong. Oh
yeah, I remember that.
And I shot downtown from the other side and Victoria Harbor. And I was like, oh my effing God, I have never seen a low light shot like this come out of a phone.
Yeah, not a lot of noise, and it was clear.
Yeah, that was the beginning of night mode on the Pixel. And, other companies had done it before. Huawei had done a night mode before that. But this was the first time that we were like, okay, yeah, we get it. Yeah. This is a deal. Like, this whole concept of super stacking images super fast and getting a composite.
Long exposure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what they do in terms of the camera. I don't think for the design wise, I love the Pixel 7's design more than the 6. I think it's just the perfect amount of refinement. So I'm excited to see what they do with the camera sensors.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not big on putting rumors this early on the Pixels and stuff. I'm generally not big on rumors much, but I feel like, this is an interesting thought exercise for all of us here listening. And, you guys, you can go back after you've listened to this show and kind of ruminate on this. What does it mean to you if they change the sensors on this? Are you afraid? Are you like, oh, it's going to be another year of we might not get the best performance because they're figuring it out? Or do you think like me, where I think they've kind of learned their lesson and, we've seen them be able to adapt, and I feel pretty confident that they're not going to mess this up? I kind of feel like Google is on a positive trajectory finally, like on the Pixel line of products,
Yeah.
So that's my thoughts. I'd love to hear your comments, folks. Hit us up on Twitter and in the comments on my YouTube channel. Speaking of which, we need to wrap up, Mark. So do you want to tell folks where they can find you on the internet, like your social media handles and your YouTube channel, all the good stuff?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and it's all the same handle at HeyMarkL. So it's HeyMarkL. And yeah, hope to see y'all there.
Awesome, folks. Definitely subscribe to Mark's channel and, hit us up both on Twitter with questions and comments. My handle is @Tankgirl, like TNKGRL, like the comic book character. Drop all the vowels. That's my Twitter handle. It's also my Instagram handle. So if you want to look at pretty pictures of phones, pretty pictures of cars, of travel, of tech, all taken with phones, so check out my Instagram. I just posted some of my photos from the 12T Pro. Of course, they're compressed to death, so you're not going to really enjoy them, but it gives you an idea of what it can do. And then, of course, the podcast lives at mobiletechpodcast.com or on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Spotify, everywhere good podcasts can be found. Please consider liking or reviewing the podcast in your app if it lets you do that. And of course, there's a couple of YouTube channels, youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast and youtube.com/mobiletechmore. You should subscribe to them. That's where I give you some visuals to go alongside this podcast. If you want to see some of the devices we just talked about, like you've never seen a Xiaomi 12T Pro, well, I just posted my video unboxing of it where I walk you through all of the angles and sides of it. I have been trying to do 3 videos a week because I recorded a ton of videos last year and never published them. So I'm going through a backlog right now, trying to edit and publish 3 videos a week for the next little while until I feel like I've kind of run out of material that's relevant because I can't go too far back in time. But hopefully you'll play along and comment in the comments and do all the YouTube things, like, subscribe, tell your friends, click the little bell, all that stuff. But yeah, comment about the podcast, comment about the videos, and stay tuned for more. And then, of course, the patreon.com/Tankgirl. That's patreon.com/TNKGRL. If you want to really help me out, the best way to help me out is Patreon. What you get is a video version of the podcast ahead of the audio version about a day before. And you get it less edited, and you get to see my face, Mark's face, off phones that we're brandishing and stuff. And it's a little bit more personal, right? So consider paying for that and helping me out. That's one tier. There's also a way to join the Discord server and chat with me. There's also a bunch of other stuff there to check out. So consider Patreon, patreon.com/TNKGRL. And finally, I want to thank MediaTek for being our sponsors this week. MediaTek powers nearly 2 billion connected devices a year and is a market leader in developing innovative systems on a chip for mobile device, home entertainment, connectivity, and IoT products. Thanks again to MediaTek for sponsoring this podcast. And Mark, I want to thank you for being my guest this week. Thanks for being on the show. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. No, this has been a blast.
Awesome. Well, listen, we'll have you on at some point in the future again. And folks, we'll have another show next week, so stay tuned for that. Until then, cheers, everybody.
This has been the Mobile Tech Podcast with Tank Girl, proudly presented by worldpodcasts.com. You can visit us online at mobiletechpodcast.com.